Welcome to All About Art. My name is Alexandra, and I'm an art historian, curator, and writer. Within this podcast, topics relating to art history, cultural policy, the art sector, as well as a large range of other art-related topics will be covered. Conducting critical discussions, having entertaining exchanges, or just enjoying some relaxing chats, All About Art is where you'll find it all. Join me in exploring and developing cultural discourse. Welcome to another episode of All About Art. In this episode, I sit down with Flora Bradwell, a London-based artist. This episode was actually recorded a few months ago, which is quite atypical here on All About Art, but there was a reason for it. At the time, Flora was pregnant with her baby boy, who has since then not only been born, but has already attended a few exhibition openings and art events. I'm launching this episode to coincide with Flora's exhibition, We're Gonna Need a Bigger Boat, with painters Lindsay Jean McLean, who has also been on All About Art, and Sophie Knight. The show is opening on September 23rd, 2022, and will be on view for that weekend on the Slash Arts Gallery houseboat on Regent's Canal. So do come if you're in London. It'll be great. In this episode, we don't just talk about Flora's pregnancy and the show on the boat. We talk about her experience at Slade, a well-known and well-respected art school. We also talk about her practice as a painter, sculptor, and filmmaker, and how it has expanded into curatorial opportunities, artist residencies, and a project called Bad Art, which you should definitely check out on Instagram. Listen further to hear us talk candidly about all of this and more. Motherhood and an arts career, what it feels like to be at the beginning of a new chapter in life, and how juggling tons of creative projects can have an impact on an artist's practice. Thank you, Flora, for coming on the podcast. Before I dive in, I wanted to let you lovely listeners know that All About Art is on Patreon. So if you want some behind-the-scenes content, maybe a bit of merch, the chance to get one-on-ones with me and my guests, or you're simply wanting to support this project, I would be absolutely thrilled if you decided to sign up. You can do so through the link in the show notes. I also wanted to say thank you to those who have already signed up. Your support means the world, and it makes the further production, improvement, and growth of the podcast possible. And for that, I'm incredibly grateful. And now, on to the interview. Hi, Flora.
Hello.
Thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Thank you for having me. Really excited to do this podcast.
First things first, I would like to give the listeners an idea of your background and your education. Mm-hmm. You studied at the Slade School of Fine Art, which is known as one of the best art schools in the UK. Can you tell me more about that experience, and how do you think that your MFA has impacted your practice?
So with the Slade, I feel like that was just a massive kick up the arse for me. Like that was definitively just necessary in my practice. I suppose like it's the twofold thing of like what the kind of key elements of your practice are. So like the ideas behind everything. And then on the other flip side, you've got the kind of like career progression, which sounds kind of naff, but is also you have to think strategically. So it was a twofold thing. I think I went there with my practice being incredibly disparate. So I had, which is still the case, I had performance, film, painting, a little bit of tiny bits of sculpture at that point, like queer cabaret elements, a curatorial practice, and they all felt like they were stretched across a lot of different identities and didn't have like one key kind of voice. And so I kind of went to the Slade thinking, well, let me marry all of these things together, specifically through painting, because I'd done my BA in painting at City and Guilds in 2009. And I just wanted to return to that kind of cozy home of painting because it is a really seductive medium and it feels like it has the capacity to pull all of the strands together, or I felt like that was a thing. So I tried 4 times to get into the Slade, 4th time lucky.
Wow.
Yeah, which is over years, and then got in and was very pleased, but very, well, not daunted, but it was a roller coaster emotionally. Lots of different methods in how to teach people. Some might say are a little bit like Stockhouse syndrome-y, like that kind of like, you feel like you're in love with your kidnapper a bit when you're there.
Oh God.
being like pulled to absolute shreds and then built back up again, and like being told things are like ugly and awful, and having your personality kind of like torn to shreds, which was not what I was expecting. Having said that, it was a really good lesson in learning about, well, just re-evaluating how so many different perspectives exist. I initially tried to please everybody, realised I couldn't, refound my voice, and it was a much stronger, more ambitious, more clear-cut voice. And that was really, really, really helpful within my practice. So it was a lot of like trying to like wade through the bullshit, but inevitably you take a lot away from that. So that was really, really helpful in terms of my practice. And I feel now that like I've put way more of myself into it, because inevitably your hand is the thing that's making the work, and I'm a maker. And so for me, that making became center to everything. And then from that acknowledgement that I was the person making it and allowing a bit of vulnerability in, I think that really strengthened the work, the ambition of the work, and the continuity across all the different things that I did. So in that way, that was lovely. And just meeting gorgeous friends and having a lovely time in that way, that also then feeds into the sort of idea around the network and the idea around going forward and like meeting lovely people and having a platform and a base from which to jump into like the next phase of what you do, like in terms of exhibitions and residencies and commissions and shows. So I suppose it was like a twofold finding of myself. I mean, to not sound like a total idiot. But yeah, that was lovely. It was a roller coaster, and it was very, very useful. I'm wondering if there's anything else. I mean, there's so much else that was gained.
Yeah.
But I think those are the key things. Yes.
And after all of that, your practice now has become something that is incredibly playful and colorful, mm-hmm. and as you would also describe it, generously grotesque.
Yes.
And you work in all different mediums still, mm-hmm. from sculpture to painting and to film and more.
Yes.
And I find your visual language incredibly distinctive. I could recognize a work of yours from a mile away.
Thank you.
And so can you tell me a bit more about your practice and what the main themes are that you reference?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, the generously grotesque, that is a key feature of the practice, because I think the carnivalesque is something that really like influences everything. That idea of the political license of the fool to tell the truth, using humour to discuss themes that maybe seem quite weighty, and exploring things within that was something that I was already really interested in. But I think that the grotesque element of the carnival and that kind of the idea of hosting someone and inviting someone to a party and being inclusive, that aspect of the carnivalesque as well plays into my practice. So I would describe, like, one of the key themes at the moment is the toothed vagina, the vagina dentata. And I made these like hybrid vagina boot characters who sing songs and collaborated with an amazing trans-inclusive woman with an ex-choir that sang this song from the perspective of like these multitude of singing vagina dentatas for my degree show. And that was
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember walking in, you had a whole room, and I remember these large sculptures of these vaginas with teeth.
Yeah.
And that song was playing in the background. It was this beautiful, no, I mean, it wasn't even in the background. It was very much present within the room. When you're in the space, you get engulfed in that environment. Yeah,
that was, and I would say that's like the zenith of my practice, as in the aspiration that I have would be to have something that was truly immersive, that included something sound-based or video-based, definitely time-based, sculptural, painted, and also thinking about space, like thinking about the picture plane as a potential for storytelling and also as a potential for performance. So draping paintings from the wall down to the floor so that they feel like theatre sets or something that you could interact with or walk inside, and really playing with them as not necessarily these like elevated, stretched things that happen in white cube spaces, but something that comes off the wall and like into your life and invites you to enter these fantastical worlds that I hope still retain like some little details that like bring you to the everyday. So maybe it might be like an oversized fork. So it's ridiculous because it's massive and it's floppy, but it's still a fork and you recognize it. And so that kind of strangeness of the everyday kind of perverted by this surreal filter, I think is definitely like where my practice sits. And I'm still really trying to like push the boundaries of like how painting can be sculpture. I was treating a lot of like 3D soft sculptures as painting, so painting them. And the weird thing that happened is they all became really flat objects, because when you read this 3-dimensional object that's been rendered with paint, you read it as a 2D thing, even though it's a 3D thing. So there was lots of fun things happening when I was playing around with painting and sculpture and trying to merge the two, but also just narrative. And I think like working in series, like a sequential idea, the idea of, had I had all the time in the world and not had COVID and other like caring commitments in my life, I think I would have like then made an animated film and you know, you're like budget time. If you have everything that you do,
of course,
fill a bloody warehouse full of this stuff, and it would just be inflatable, and you'd enter it and it would be obscene and ridiculous. So yeah, I feel like that was just like the tip of the iceberg of what I want to go on to achieve with my practice. Something that really invites people into a celebratory environment, but also something that does talk to ideas that maybe could be a bit more serious, but those are still hidden, probably because I'm British and probably because I feel like the body, working on the body as a woman, is still fraught with a kind of sense of being naff in the art world. You know, that kind of idea of like, oh, is it autobiographical because you're a woman? Is it about the body because you're a woman? So I still find myself like, instead of just being like, this is a vagina, I'm like, this vagina is this weird lip creature that's attached to a boot. Or this like engorged body is hidden behind these pillars and looks like a mountain. I don't know, I'm still hiding that because I think it's not a sense of shame because I love the scatological, but it's just maybe a sense of like, oh, it's a bit too self-indulgent maybe. So it's the body bit hidden as well.
Yeah.
Among all those other themes, that was quite a large list.
No, it was wonderful, especially when you were describing what type of things that you feel like you'd want to achieve with your practice in terms of like the immersion of viewers or of people coming to experience your art. I cannot wait to enter into a warehouse that's just Flora's world.
Or like a sculpture garden. I just want to make my own like tarot garden. Do you know what I mean?
I'm picturing something with like inflatables everywhere, just hanging from the ceiling, coming from the floors, outside.
That would be delicious.
Everywhere.
That would be absolutely the dream and delightful. It will happen. It will happen.
We manifest.
Absolutely.
So going back a little bit further, before you studied art, when did you know that you wanted to be an artist, and how did you go about approaching that career path since you had that realization?
Well, weirdly, that was at art school. So when I went to City and Guilds.
Yeah.
So I started off my life, I did a BA in English literature at York University, which does not appear on my CV.
No, it doesn't. When I was
not.
doing my research, I did not see that.
It's my closet BA in English literature that I keep hidden. So I did that, and I worked in an estate agent's for a bit, and then travelled the world and just didn't know what to do, and was like, oh, look, there's this postgraduate diploma available at City and Guilds of London Art School. I liked painting and did an art A-level. Maybe this will be for me. And this is back in the day where university fees were not what they are now.
Yeah.
My parents lived in London. It was not so, well, it was still extravagant and ridiculous to do 2 BAs. But I did a postgraduate diploma, so I just thought, okay.
Sure, yeah.
I arrived there, and like within 2 seconds, I was like, I want to be an artist. This is actually what I want to do. I find myself in art school. This seems like a good place to be. And a tutor was like, yeah, but if you take this seriously, you've got to go and do a BA. So I transferred from the postgraduate diploma onto the BA. So then ended up doing 2 BAs, one in English literature, which is not on my CV, and one in fine art painting at City and Guilds. And that was great. So that is weirdly, art school made me realise I wanted to be an artist. And then graduated from the BA at City and Guilds. And I suppose that kind of like, how did I pursue that then further, it was quite bleak because I graduated in 2009 and it was the financial crash.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of our tutors were just like, guys, we're not selling our work anymore. I don't know what to say to you. Like, it's really bleak out there. It's a jungle. And
similar to now.
yeah, I've really timed all the times I've graduated really fucking terribly. So we were sat there and just like, this is brutal. But one thing that came out of that crash was lots of empty spaces. So I did start like curating shows through Camden had this like pop-up shop scheme. So I would like make shows with mates from art school. I had a friend who was a curator. We did like a project in like an empty shop in Brixton Village Market when it was about to be condemned, and then it got saved as a Grade 2 listed building. So I just kind of like hustled and did shows with my friends for a really long time, and then accidentally went into video because it was easier to send work abroad and have an international career, because you would just transfer this video over and suddenly it would be in, you know, Korea. Right. And you'd be like, oh, I've got a show in New York. And it cost me nothing, but just the press of a button. So that's how I kind of segued into video. And then the video became music videos for this alter ego I had called Bella Lordwolf. And then from that stemmed a kind of performance practice that was kind of in like feminist art spaces, queer cabaret nights. Like she did tarot readings, she did all this stuff. She did performances where she sprayed the audience with various fluids, and it was really fun. But then I just was like, I've lost myself, and so I had to go to the Slade to like find myself and kill this alter ego who had kind of taken over my life.
Oh no!
Yeah, so that's also probably why I went to the Slade.
Are you ever going to bring her back?
I don't know. She's not officially dead, but she. I don't know. She had this weird synthetic mask thing that was made out of old tights. I had to keep remaking it because some of them fell apart because of all the sweaty performances.
Oh my!
It was really fun. It was a really fun time. I mean, I think the energy of that performance would definitely come back, but I don't know. I need to just be I think you have to be yourself, and that again, it's that license of the fool of the carnivalesque.
Yeah.
But you're wearing a mask, and I think it takes away maybe from some of the vulnerability, because it's really easy to be fearless and to fail when you're an alter ego, but not when you're yourself. I mean, she had a painting practice. It was fucking terrible. I was just like, I can make all the worst paintings that I want to because I'm Bella Lordwolf. And having sold at a certain price as Flora Bradwell, I could sell work really cheap as Bella Lordwolf and like make some quick money for Christmas. It was like such a really canny, it was a really good moment. Like that was a strategy. I didn't know at the time. It was definitive strategy. But I just think...
Listen here, ladies and gents, if you're an artist and you need to find a quick way to make money, create an alter ego.
Create an alter ego, definitely. I mean, there was at one point I had an alter ego who did pet portraits called Doris M, but she only ever did 2. And then I just got bored. Do you know what I mean? But you've got to have... I have a few up my sleeve who have different art careers.
Oh, but, that's marvellous.
But yeah, so that was and then I just was like, and throughout this time I was applying to get into do an MFA, and I just wasn't getting in. And then I finally got in, and I was like, excellent, because I do need a bit of reining in a bit and maybe some focus at that stage, because I was just having a really lovely, disparate time, which brought me to like exciting film festivals in Germany, for example, and performing in Birmingham, and you know, going to like residencies in back gardens in a tent in Oxfordshire. I don't know, it was lovely, but it was just like, okay, I need to maybe be a bit strategic about this now. Yeah.
You grow and you develop, and then you decide what direction you want to go in.
Exactly.
And you mentioned earlier that you did some curation, and I know that you are incredibly active, not only on the artistic creation side of things, but very much also on an organizational level.
Yeah.
Which, to be completely frank, I don't think is super common with artists. because you've curated projects, as you've mentioned. You've not only taken part in film festivals, but you've co-founded a film festival, which ran for 5 years.
Yeah.
You also run artist residencies, plus you co-direct Bad Art, a curatorial project that was founded in 2016. So tell me, what motivates you to take part in all of these different projects, and how do you feel like this impacts your career as an artist? Maybe both positively and even negatively, if there is a negative side.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a positive and a negative. I think initially it was that idea that when you're a we, you're taken more seriously than when you're an I in the art world. If you can say, oh, we... I don't know, the royal we. I'm trying to think of an example where you might talk within the context of a royal we. But if you're part of an organisation and you say, we loved this film, but we couldn't include it in the film festival, you know, it's you and your mate in your pajamas going through thousands of applications, but still you're the we, and you've got this logo that you've
because you don't know if it's 2 people or 10.
Exactly. And so I think my initial foray into like a really organised, like it was a company, we were directors, like with Company's House, felt very adult. So myself and my friend Alex started Greenhorn Short Film Festival in 2011 because we'd made a short film together. I directed it and she DOP'd on it, and we didn't really know what to do. Obviously this had a budget of 0, and it was about like a man who liked replacing broken signage with letters that fit, and we spent a lot of time like hanging around London, like surreptitiously replacing all the broken letters on site. It was really fun.
Sounds marvelous.
It was great. But so we were just thinking, we don't really know how to get into this industry, this kind of emerging film industry, and everything was £15, £20 to apply for. So we said, well, let's just do our own festival. My mate who worked at a theatre was like, you can have it for a Sunday. And so the first one was quite like DIY. We had a screening of 10 films. And by the end, after 5 years, we did like 10 days of festival.
Oh my God.
Over 5 venues. We were doing like Curzon Bloomsbury for like a Japanese documentary short screening. Like it was really fun. We had networking events for like emerging artists. We had like panel discussions about like sound in the film industry and stuff. And we had like free script writing, one-on-one workshops with people.
Oh my God,
that's
amazing.
It was a beast. Mike Lee was the patron. Like he gave out prizes. It was ridiculous. We got sponsorship. We actually were able to pay ourselves in the final year. It was phenomenal. We had like thousands of applications. It was a beast. But I think it's that, and that comes to like the negative side, is like you are facilitating other people's vision and you lose time for your own vision. And I think that's also maybe where I was in my practice at that time. It definitely took a back seat. Whenever we had the festival, we just lost all sight of our own practice. So after 5 years, we thought, do we send this brand over to someone else, or do we just kill it dead? And we just thought, let's just kill it, because I think the idea of legacy is a bit boring, and I just think you could flog a dead horse. I mean, it wasn't a dead horse, it was a flourishing horse, but also it was a horse that was our horse, and there were so many other festivals that were doing kind of similar things. The people who had been like helping out were doing their own projects, and it just didn't feel right to kind of, because I think we would have always felt ownership and then maybe felt like sadness if it went in a strange direction, and then feel like responsibility if people had been treated badly or something like that. So I think we just killed it dead, and there was some sort of power in just killing that baby.
From what we're going to talk about a bit later on, that's quite a controversial topic, Flora.
But it was like brilliant, kill it
no,
dead.
I get it.
It just was really, and people,
I think that takes a lot of strength too, because I'm putting myself in your shoes right now, and I'm thinking about, okay, what if I had this thing that was going and then going really, really strong?
Yeah.
But ultimately, you knew what you wanted, and what you had wanted was to further your practice.
Yeah.
That was what was important.
And I don't want to be a festival producer, and I don't want to do those things. I mean, but then obviously, inevitably, I got involved in about a million other projects afterwards, and I mean,
God, you and I are a lot alike. I really, really resonate. It's like, no, I'm just going to concentrate on my full-time job now. And I have a podcast. And I curate. And I do presenting. And I...
well, very, very that.
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know, I think that sometimes being busy is just delicious. And
it is.
as long as it's not
is.
in like a pompous or pretentious way, it's actually... It's regenerating. And I think that's the good thing about doing the curatorial stuff is like you meet so many amazing people who are so inspiring. You get excited by their practice. And I did then like segue more into like the visual art world. So when did Greenhorn finish? Like 2015 or something. And then I kind of started this thing called Inland Project with another artist called Sylvia. And we were just thinking about can you curate an exhibition without a space, because it's such a ball ache when you find the space and you're in the space and you've got to pay for the shipping. And at that point we were getting flyers done and it was just like the expenses mounted, and we got some money from ASC Studios to do like a project that was kind of like a zine, but it was also a zine that it was like a massive zine that you could cut up and make into an exhibition. And that kind of had an exhibition in Birmingham with one iteration. We did like workshops in Brixton with like young people who wanted to learn about curating, and they turned that magazine into an exhibition themselves. And so it was really fun. It went to Brighton. We did something with Deptford X, an APT gallery. And so that was really exciting because you were seeing your project and just sending it off into the world and other people could interpret it. And you had so many accidental audiences because sometimes it was just like pasted like posters on walls and stuff. So that was really fun. And that came out of like necessity. And then I moved to Walthamstow. I met the Icing Room Collective, which is another collective which was very much like alternative spaces. So that's like Isabel, Laura, Denise, gorgeous humans, Clem. And that was like initially in Isabel's living room, but then we also did shows in like a recording studio, another old shop where we did like an auction. So yeah, I think it's about like the lovely people you meet and the inspiration that gives you, the networks that kind of brings you into totally different places that you'd never think that you'd go. But I think also just having to hold on to yourself and protect your practice and try and say no to things, which I'm getting better at doing. I haven't run a residency from my shed for at least 2 years now. So
because of COVID.
Because of COVID.
Okay, Flora, you go ahead and pat yourself on the back.
Because of COVID, I couldn't host a residency from my shed.
But good that made you, you know, sometimes I think with COVID as well, like from a personal standpoint, it did also make me take a step back.
Yeah.
I then, as I said, dove into doing this podcast
Yeah.
and doing other things, but it took me in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
So, and because you were mentioning collectives, are you a part of any other artistic collectives or projects at the moment, or are there any exciting projects that you could tell me about that are coming up?
So yeah, I mean, I'm still part of the Icing Room, but at the moment we're like very friendship focused, which is gorgeous. And obviously Bad Art is still the project that's going on now, but I'm conscious of when this is airing and like when things are happening. So I'm just thinking
this might be coming out a little bit later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, there's definitely a show that's coming up that probably has happened. There's a show that's coming up in my future that has happened.
In the time that this podcast is live.
In the editing moment.
Yeah.
So that's pointless to mention. I've just finished a residency with Elephant Lab, and there's some things coming out of that.
Yes.
So across different platforms. So that will be exciting.
Yeah.
And it all sounds gorgeously vague. And
that's fine. We can keep it vague.
Well,
we can keep everyone hungry to come to your shows.
Well, in September, doing a show with Slash Arts, which is on a boat.
Yep.
Working title is We're Gonna Need a Bigger Boat. And I would like that to remain the title of the show.
Have you told Simon yet?
Yeah, it's in the, I put it in there.
Did that make him nervous?
They didn't respond to that specific element of the exhibition proposal, but we did a show called Snakes on a Picture Plane.
Yes, I went to that.
Yeah, and it's the same 3 people.
Oh, marvelous.
Like, as the team. So I feel like we have to just only do shows that are kind of puns on film titles or quotes from films. So it's definitively going to be called We're Gonna Need a Bigger Boat. So keep your eyes posted for that.
Perfect. And I'm sitting here with you today, and this is, the podcast is going to come out a bit later.
Yes.
So at this point, when people are listening, something may have already happened.
Yes.
But your life is about to change in a huge way, because in a few weeks, you are expecting a baby.
Yes, that's true.
And so I have to ask, with societal pressures and everything surrounding motherhood and careers, and as stereotypical and idiotic, actually, as this question sounds, how do you feel as you prepare to embark on this new life chapter?
God, I mean, denial is one thing. There's like looming large, absolute denial that it's going to happen. Yeah, I wasn't sure about this one, like discussing this, because I've been kind of like closeted about my pregnancy in social media terms, and
right, because when someone sees you in person, it's
pretty fucking obvious.
Yes.
Yeah, it's I am a boat. I am a barge of a woman at the moment. Yeah,
glorious, glowing.
God, it's so fucking long. It's so fucking long. I just want to go to a festival. Yeah. What was the question? Sorry, I just went. No, yeah. I mean, it's a choice. It's a choice that I made in my life that it's too late now to go back on. I did. I know, it's actually going to probably happen at this stage.
Probably, Flora.
Every day it gets closer, I'm just like, oh Christ, it's more likely that it's going to happen.
Oh, this is so...
yeah, it's a choice. But I did think a lot about it, obviously.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it 10 years ago. I'm doing it now when I'm an older person.
Yeah.
Not that much older, but just, yeah. I think that the world has changed immensely since I graduated in 2009 till today. Like, I feel over the last 3-4 years, the discourse around motherhood in the arts has been just significantly more open, more inclusive, more thoughtful. It feels like there's significantly more resources, and maybe you're not fully blacklisted just because you're a new mother or pregnant, or also a woman who's of childbearing age, because I feel that there was a real invisibility of artists of anything from 30 to 45, because that was just anything could happen. Don't want to invest in that potentially tainted goods. It'll take 5 years out of their practice, if not longer. And I mean,
it might change their practice too.
Exactly.
Oh, what a risk.
What an absolute travesty. But yeah, and hearing terrible stories, stories about judges in art prizes not wanting to give it to a new mother because she wouldn't be in the game for 5 years, and those sort of things. And I think that I remember going to an artist talk that was about, should there be women-only art exhibitions? And this was around 2010, and it was very much they talked about motherhood within the context of women-only exhibitions, and why does it have to be women-only when it could just be an artist exhibition? They all just happen to be women. But within the context of motherhood, there were so many stories of women who just hid their children and their lives with their children, and they were just a secret. And I was like, maybe I could just do that and just just sort of I was at a private view last night, and there was a cat in a backpack, and I was like, maybe that's the answer.
Laura.
Maybe that's the answer. Just stick it in a backpack. But I do feel that, I don't know, I think half the art world is probably paying lip service to that, and especially within the commercial world, there's definitely still going to be a lot around motherhood being a big turn off. So I don't think that we're this suddenly enlightened industry. I think the art world is so not enlightened across the board in terms of diversity, representation, so many different things, and it's still obscenely elitist. But I do feel more confident, so I probably will emerge at some point in some level in social media world and admit to what I've been up to.
Well, I mean, you're going to have to once this podcast comes out. I mean, you can ask me to cut it out if all else fails, but
yeah,
you're going to be sitting there with a newborn baby. You're not going to be able to hide it.
It's true. It will become
And you
obvious.
shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to.
I know,
That's
and
the
isn't
thing.
it sad that
It
so
is.
many women feel that they have to?
Yes.
But then you also see like incredible role models, like Monster Chetwynd, like has a son. I feel like when she was Turner Prize nominated, like that was part of her life. And one of my tutors at Slade, Emma Hart, also as part of her practice is that kind of narrative around like domesticity and having a child when she makes photographic work. And you see all these women being maybe either just smashing it or being honest about the experience in a way that's like part of their practice. And I think maybe that's also part of the thing that we were talking about earlier about like women being like the autobiographical and feminine art being kind of icky or being pulled up.
Cliche, maybe even, yeah.
When the men are making this autobiographical art.
Excuse me, we see penises
Yeah.
everywhere. No matter where we go, all of these things are phallic objects. I mean, come on.
Exactly.
Come on.
Exactly. And so I just feel that, I mean, it's just so frustrating because it's like, and I love a lot of men, but it is that white male experience is the norm and anything other than that is the other. And I'm still talking from a very privileged position of like a white woman who is privileged, but still I feel that anger. I can't imagine what other people feel in terms of rage about how frustrating that is to have that narrative as just being the status quo and the everyman's experience.
Yeah.
When it's still deeply personal and deeply autobiographical, and they're the hands that are making the work. Yeah. And so I feel that like within the context of motherhood, it's always been seen as kind of icky and self-indulgent alongside women's work and the feminine and the decorative. And I just suppose we just have to like get out there and challenge that. But also I just see far more women like programming stuff, and that I do feel like that is very slowly changing. But let's see. I have no idea what it's going to be like personally for me in terms of motherhood.
I mean, of course not. I think that's, from what I hear, it's not like I would know. Mm-hmm. But from what I hear, it changes, and it's nothing like you would expect it to be. Mm-hmm. And everyone has a different experience.
Totally.
And I think that's why I wanted to ask you this question, because I feel like even coming from a perspective of a 25-year-old mm-hmm. who is very invested in her career, and I don't know if I want kids. Mm. And the thing is that it's so important, in my opinion, for women to be open about their experiences, mm-hmm. because that's how you start to shift the way that at least women might look at other women, or even other people listening to this podcast or listening to what other people say about it. They become aware of the issues and the gaps.
Yeah.
And so people can start taking that into consideration. I don't know if having these conversations will actually ignite change in a small scale, but if more and more people talk about it and more people are bringing light to these issues, that's going to become a big thing.
But also just that kind of idea of like it's your choice, and you could also not have children, and that's also great.
Yeah, like absolutely.
And that's also and I suppose maybe that's like wider societal rather than art world, because I feel like within the art world there is a real emphasis on God, you're dead if you've got kids for 10 years or
and
whatever,
that's scary,
which is really scary.
It's like maybe I do want kids, but a part of me doesn't even let me because I want my career so badly. And so I'm sitting here feeling really ambitious and feeling that is getting threatened, when actually if things were structured differently, I wouldn't even need to feel threatened, because my partner, who is male, if I would get pregnant, he would not feel threatened in his career. He would not feel like he would have to give up his job.
It's true.
But I would.
It's true. And also, to be honest, whether you want to have kids or not, people will go, oh, right, she might have kids.
Yeah.
Whether you want to or not, whether you can or you can't, you're still going to be stigmatized by the fact that you might. So it's kind of arbitrary in a way. Just whatever you decide to do.
You're going to be fucked either way as a woman. So
fully. I feel like whatever you decide to do or want to do, you're fucked. And hopefully that's changing. I want to be positive and say,
I think
I hope it's changing.
Well, and I think, you know, God, this is also going to sound so silly when I say it, but like a part of how you approach it is what makes that change too. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I mean, there's only so much you can do against big societal hurdles. I'm not going to say that, oh, it's just mindset and then your life's going to be fine. That's definitely not what I'm saying.
No.
But it is very much you know, when you fight for that, then that can open things up a little bit more.
Yeah, it's just that thing, isn't it, where you're like, do I have to be the one who does the fighting? Can I not just sit at home and watch Netflix and just have a little
have
rest?
my job, and then, you know, I come home and my husband is cooking and taking care of the baby and everything's...
I think within the context of my life, I do have a very supportive partner, so that does make me feel a bit less anxious about going into the world of into the world of motherhood and art balancing. But yeah, it's really tricky to know because you just don't know whether you're going to get a good one. And so you're just like, okay, I'm going to try and plan some things for the next 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 months. Get some very gentle shows going, maybe some like little teaching gigs, maybe a few other little projects, but quite quietly, because you don't want to fight what's going to come next either and find yourself fighting this thing. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really hard to talk about because it feels like every time, at least for me, every time I say something and I'm like, okay, but this could possibly be a way to approach it. But then you're like, yeah, but this hurdle or this situation or this thought. Yeah. And it's very much okay, you kind of have to just let it happen.
Yeah.
And see what
absolutely.
What comes.
It is kind of nice though, because I am now seeing a few more like women artists on Instagram talking about their recent births, and like seeing them still having a practice, like some people strapping babies to them, painting, and that sounds delicious. And also the joy for me and my practice is it's so versatile that it's like, well, if painting doesn't work, maybe soft sculpture will. And if soft sculpture doesn't work, maybe animation will. Like all of these different approaches that is really I'm quite thankful that I've got those different strings to my bow. And I think that like versatility is really important. It's also just that thing of when I'm talking about like, I want to fill a warehouse with enormous work. And then the reality of like retreating back to the domestic sphere, which feels very like COVID lockdown. It feels very like, now I'm painting in my garden, tiny little things, because we're all, you know, like tiny, tiny little paintings. So yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea personally what the future will hold. You see so many people smashing it in so many different times. But if I end up not smashing it and being an absolute failure, that's something I'm quite used to as an artist anyway, like daily failure and rejection. So in fact, being an artist maybe does prepare you for it in many ways, because you have to be versatile, you have to be responsive, you have to manage your time in really insane ways. So maybe that and lockdown might make it something that's not such an alien concept. Saying that, I've never changed nappy. So we'll see how that goes.
yeah, we'll see. I'm going to wrap this up with one final question, and it's a bit of a fun one. Yeah. Because I always love to ask my guests this before signing off. If you could have dinner with one artist from art history, who would it be and why? So hilariously, this is the question that like I think I thought most about. I was like, this is such a hard question. It's so hard because you're like, who would be fun, but also have a great practice, but also do all of these things. But I think I would have to go for Leonora Carrington because, I mean, surreal painter, like lived through an insane time in the world, and also like you have these stories where she covered her feet in mustard at a dinner table and served her guests omelettes with their own hair in that she'd secretly cut the night before, which sounds horrendous, but at least a bit of a narrative and a story. And I feel like she was up for it. Like
there were stories about like dinner parties going on all night. You know, she traveled the world. It feels like she was like a bold and no nonsense woman who also would like make strange witchcraft recipes with her friend and make weird hats and just was really irreverent. So I feel like that energy and that irreverence and that kind of sense of like no one knows what's going to happen next could make for a good evening.
I think that you thought a lot about it, and now that answer has come out, and now I want to go to dinner with her.
Yes, Leonora Carrington, please.
I'm a little bit nervous though because I really don't want my own hair in my food, so maybe she shouldn't cook it.
Yeah, maybe. You go to a restaurant maybe with Leonora Carrington. Yeah. But then she still would put mustard on her feet. And
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. That's okay. That's okay. That's a boundary that's, it can be, fine.
Yeah, boundaries around hair in your omelette is quite hard.
Yeah, I didn't know that I had that boundary, but now I do.
It does make you do that thing where your teeth bite into wool and you're like, ugh.
Oh, stop. Stop. I'm going to cut that out of the podcast.
Don't cut it out, because that's part of the generous grotesquerie of my work. It's actually the most important thing I've said all evening.
Oh, great. Well,
very, very
Flora,
important.
thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Hooray.
It was an absolute joy.
Thank you so much for having me. I've had a lovely time. Cheers.
And that is it for today on All About Art. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a rating or a review, as it helps more people discover the show. Also, feel free to share with your friends, or if you share on social media, tag me and get in touch. Thank you so much for listening.